Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm talking all about my two dogs, and if you've been watching for a while, you know that they tend to steal the spotlight in almost every video that I do. They're always around, and I work from home, so they're in and out of the frame all the time. But I thought I would just focus on them because whenever they show up in YouTube videos or on my Instagram, my blog posts, I get a lot of questions about dogs, specifically about being a dog owner. So I thought I would share some of the things that I've learned about being a dog owner in the past 4 years. So before we get started, I will answer the two most frequently asked questions that I get about the dogs, and that is what breed they are and how old they are. So Teddy right here is a toy poodle and he is 4 years old. And then Hamilton is a Maltipoo and he is turning 2 in January. So he's still kind of in that puppy stage, and I have a feeling based on his personality, he might be in that puppy stage for the rest of his life. So if you've watched a lot of my videos and you know that I love my dogs and I truly love them, it kind of hurts my heart I love them so much. But I actually haven't been a dog person my entire life. In fact, I used to be terrified of dogs, and when I would go to my best friend Nicole's house, we would have to put the dog outside or in the basement when I went over to play. Sorry, Travis. And sorry, Nicole. I've since seen the light and become a dog person now, but I do think it's kind of funny that I have 2 dogs. I didn't grow up with dogs. I knew nothing about the dogs. I didn't know how to raise dogs. And now I have 2, and my life pretty much revolves around dogs. So today I wanted to share some of my tips and advice about having a dog. I don't think it's for everyone. Even if you are a dog lover, there's a difference between being obsessed with dogs and being a dog owner. And it's not easy, although I will say it's worth it in the end. But you really want to make sure you're going into it with the right idea because it is truly a commitment. So the first piece of advice that I have is that you really do learn things along the way. As I mentioned, I didn't grow up having dogs. My family had cats. And the whole concept of being a dog owner was foreign to me. And when I got Teddy, it was kind of like being dropped into the deep end without a life preserver and just having to figure out everything as I went along. I felt like I had ruined my life for the first 3 weeks that he was in my life because I didn't know what I was doing. The puppy thing is so difficult and so challenging, and I just truly felt like I had ruined my life by getting a dog. With that said, every day you learn something new about the dog and about being an owner of dogs, and there's a ton of great resources out there, whether it's watching YouTube videos on how to train a puppy or consulting with your vet. I've actually found that using your vet as a resource is the best way to get personalized information and personalized tips and strategies for training your dog. I didn't do that for Teddy so much, partly because I was embarrassed about having some of the questions that I had. But with Hamilton, even though I'd already had Teddy and trained him, Hamilton marches to the beat of his own drum, if you know what I mean. So I would go to my vet and ask any and all questions, and he had some of the best advice. And I think that made the transition of having a second dog a lot easier. So I would definitely rely on your vet and know that it's okay if you don't know what you're doing at the beginning, because you do figure things out along the way. There's no other way to do it than to just figure it out pretty much. And while you're figuring it out, I will pass along another tip, and that is to just hang tight for that first month. I know that when I got Teddy, as I said, I thought my life was over. It was so hard because I wasn't sleeping through the night. You're taking the dog out to try to train them and get them potty trained, and it is just absolutely exhausting. And then once you round that 4-week corner, you're used to the dog's personality. You feel like you have a little bit more of a bond. You're sleeping more, so you can make better emotional decisions pretty much. But once you get through that first month, you can kind of start to feel like yourself again and feel like, okay, I can do this. This is something that I can do. Right, Teddy? It's quite the learning process for both of us. Okay, number 2 is actually more of a fact, and maybe this is just something that I felt personally, but I do know that I've spoken to a couple of my friends who had similar issues, and that is when I got Teddy, I didn't realize just how self-centered my life really was. I don't mean this in like a selfish, oh, it's all about me all the time, but it kind of was all about me all the time because I didn't have to worry about anything or anyone else when I was making my schedule or coming up with travel plans. And then all of a sudden I got a dog, and it dawned on me that, oh my God, this whole time, my whole life, I've been making up all these decisions without having to consult anyone else or worry about anything. And now whenever I'm making travel plans, I have to book a boarding for the dog. I have to schedule the vet. When I'm out with my friends, I can't stay out too long. I can't just spend the night at my girlfriend's house after a late movie or something like that. They're always on the top of my mind, and that was probably the hardest transition, but now it's just what I'm used to, and my friends and my boyfriend know, like, okay, I've got to worry about the dogs. And because I do love the dogs, it's not a hard decision to make, but it is something to keep in mind that if you want the flexibility to be able to book a flight at the drop of the hat or stay out all day long, you know, for 12 hours, 15 hours without having to go back to your apartment or your house, dogs probably are not for you. Going off of that last point, this is my second piece of advice, and this is the one that I think if you are thinking about getting a dog, you should definitely put at the top of your to consider list. And that is, I wish I had actually waited before getting dogs. When I got Teddy, I had just quit my job and was thinking that I wanted something to be at home with me while I was working from home, and I kind of rushed into it and didn't give it as much thought as I think I should have. And I love the dogs and can't imagine my life without them, but there is something to be said about waiting until you have a ton of stability in your life, and most specifically like a fenced-in yard or something like that. They're fine and they love being in an apartment, but it is a challenge to have an apartment with a dog and to have to worry about my different life changes that happen when you're in your 20s. For example, right now you may have a flexible working schedule where having a dog fits in, but dogs live for a very long time. I mean, toy poodles and multi-poos, fingers crossed, they could live up to 18 to 20 years. And my job right now allows that flexibility, but in the future that might change. I know I've had readers reach out to me about wanting to get dogs like in the first year out of college or while they're in college because they can take care of the dog, but that might not always be the case. And now when I think about future career moves, I always have to think about, okay, is this a job where I could leave in lunch to go walk a dog? Or is this a company that is dog friendly now might not always be dog friendly in the future? My apartment buildings, I always have to make sure that they allow dogs. So that definitely limits the number of things I can do in the future. And I think it's important that when you get a dog, you're really committing to be a dog owner. And that means, you know, you're not going to just abandon them at your parents' house because you know that they'll take care of them. If you get a dog, they're your responsibility, and that takes into account all the life changes that might happen in the future. You know, there's always going to be an excuse that you can come up with, but that really should be taken into account, especially when you're in your 20s. And that's kind of the word of advice that I give a lot of my friends when they're like thinking about getting a dog. Trust me, I think it's better just to wait. The other thing too is like if you think you're going to get married, you know, maybe your spouse might be allergic to dogs. Like there's just a lot of things that you need to consider. But I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy about that. I'm just trying to be realistic and to make sure that when you make that decision, you're taking all of this into account. So the fourth thing, after kind of being a little bit more pessimistic and realistic, is that it is a love I truly cannot explain and never had anticipated. They drive me crazy, like right now, but they seriously bring so much joy and happiness into my life. It really is hard to explain how much I love them, and there are times when I just look at a photo of them and I just want to cry because it's such a strong emotion that I feel. Yes, sometimes I do actually cry, especially when the photo's just so cute. Especially with Hamilton, I feel like there are times when he drives me absolutely insane throughout the day, and I'm thinking, what was I thinking getting the second dog? He gives me a run for my money. And then at night, he'll just curl up on my lap and just snuggle his head in, and I want to cry because the love is just so strong. I would actually take this as a little bit of a warning, because if you're not emotionally prepared to fall so in love with the second thing, I mean, I can barely watch Game of Thrones when they have animals dying because I can't even think about my life without my little puppies. It makes me so sad. Can't even think about it. I could cry, really. So yes, well, dogs are a huge responsibility, and it isn't a decision to be taken lightly. And there are times when I do maybe regret getting the dogs when I got them. I really can't imagine my life without them, and they just bring so much love into my life. They are so worth the hard work and the stress and the expense and the worry making sure you're being like the best dog mom, and when they get hurt and you can't help them, in the long run, it really is worth it. Do you guys want to play? Let's play. Here. All right, let's see some Teddy skills. Come here, Teddy. Ooh, Ham wants the ball. Ham does not like to play catch. So that's all I got for you today about my dogs. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. If you leave a comment below with a question or a concern that you have, or you just want advice for your own dog, I'll do my best to answer it if I can. And if I can't, I'll try to point you in the right direction on where you can find more information. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.